It's September 18th, 2022, at the bank Nightlife in Mobile, Alabama. 2:30 in the morning. The late summer heat is still hanging in the air. It's one of those warm, southern nights where nobody wanted to go home. The club is packed. I mean, packed! People streaming out after a concert, music still pounding through speakers. Conversations and laughter mixing with bass. You know, it's that Saturday night energy. Inside, John McCarroll finds his friend Reginald Fluker. He hands him something. A gun. Right there in the crowd. And then McCarroll does something that will haunt this case. He physically points. That one. Milton Carter. That's the target. 5 shots, people scattered, ducking, running for exits. Someone's down. Blood is pooling on the floor. But when the chaos settles, Milton Carter walks out of the club, alive. The man bleeding? 31-year-old Derek Shavers, father of a 6-year-old, a Walmart team lead. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong person. And that's just the beginning. This is the story of what happens when revenge targets the wrong person. Again, and again, and again. When social media turns criminals into their own prosecutors. And when 9 innocent people pay the price for someone else's war. And when the one person marked for death survives everything. I'm Steve Rhode. Welcome to True Crime Cases You Haven't Heard. Before we go any further, let me tell you exactly where this story comes from. Everything you're about to hear, the nightclub shooting, the Mississippi murder, the machine gun attack, the Walmart shooting, all of it, it all comes directly from federal court documents, FBI evidence, trial testimony, jury verdicts, and verified news coverage. Look, I don't deal in rumors. I don't deal in speculation. And when I tell you something happened in this episode, it's because prosecutors presented it to a jury, and that jury rendered a verdict. Some defendants have pending appeals. Milton Carter was never charged with any crime discussed here. But the events I'm describing, they're anchored to the record. Now let me tell you what that record revealed. For 30 years, I've been investigating criminals, financial fraudsters, con artists, people who hurt others for profit. I've seen a lot of stupid criminal decisions. But what you're about to hear might be the most spectacular failure I've ever encountered. Between September and December 2022, John McCarroll orchestrated a murder-for-hire conspiracy in Mobile, Alabama. He hired multiple shooters, provided illegal weapons, including machine guns. He directed attack after attack after attack. His target was Milton Carter. And here's what happened. 2 innocent people murdered. 1 person permanently paralyzed. 6 more wounded. Months of terror across Alabama and Mississippi. And Milton Carter? He never got a scratch. But the most damning part? The defendants documented their own crimes. Instagram voice messages bragging about shootings. Facebook posts mocking failed murder attempts. Even continuing to obstruct justice from jail on recorded phone lines. To understand how this conspiracy went so catastrophically wrong, we need to start with the spark. The death that set everything in motion. October 19th, 2020, Mobile, Alabama. A young man named Ryan Campbell is killed. He was like a little brother to John McCarroll. The two were close, and when Campbell died, McCarroll was devastated. Mobile police investigated. They made an arrest. A man named Baron Morris was charged with the murder. In August 2023, Morris pleaded guilty to intentionally murdering Ryan Campbell. He was sentenced to 20 years in Alabama State Penitentiary. But here's the critical detail that changes everything. Ryan Campbell wasn't killed in some targeted hit. He was killed during a robbery. A robbery committed by Baron Morris. It was random violence. Wrong place, wrong time. The kind of senseless street crime that happens in cities across America. And the system worked. Police identified the killer. Prosecutors secured a conviction. And justice served. But John McCarroll didn't accept it. Police arrested and convicted Baron Morris for Campbell's murder. Morris was even prepared to testify that Milton Carter had nothing to do with Ryan Campbell's death. It was just a robbery gone bad. But McCarroll blamed Carter anyway. His grief transformed into what prosecutors would later call a relentless campaign of revenge. Now picture John McCarroll in late 2020, 2021, and 2022. Living in Mobile. Known on the streets as Juvie, a nickname from his youth. His record showed misdemeanor convictions, drug paraphernalia, no pistol permit, reckless endangerment, and one conviction even granted him youthful offender status, but no felonies and nothing violent. Until Ryan Campbell died, and then everything changed. McCarroll became fixated on one goal: kill Milton Carter. He began recruiting Reginald Fluker, a friend, Darius Rouser, 19 years old, and eventually Jimaurice Pierce. He brought his girlfriend, Lateria Hollis, into the conspiracy to facilitate payments and logistics. And McCarroll provided weapons, directed surveillance, spent months planning and coordinating, preparing, despite evidence that Baron Morris, not Carter, committed the robbery that killed Campbell. By September 2022, McCarroll was ready. September 18th, a packed nightclub, and a pointing finger about to steal the wrong man's fate. It's Saturday night, Bank nightlife on Azalea Road. A concert just ended. The club's packed with people having a good time. Among them, Milton Carter. And among them, John McCarroll and Reginald Fluker. And this is where everything goes wrong. Picture it. It's 2:30 in the morning. The concert's over, but the crowd's still thick. People laughing and talking. You know, that Saturday night energy when nobody wants the evening to end. John McCarroll isn't there to party. He's there with a plan. McCarroll hands Fluker a gun right there in the crowd. And then McCarroll does something multiple witnesses would later describe. He physically points. He points at a man he believes is Milton Carter. That one, right there. Fluker raises the gun. 5 rounds fire into the crowd. People scatter, some dropping to the floor. Others are running for the exits. In the confusion, someone goes down, and blood is slowly spreading across the nightclub floor. Security rushes in. They find a man shot multiple times, critical condition. He's rushed to the hospital. Milton Carter? He walked out of that club, not a scratch. The shooter fired 5 rounds in his direction and somehow missed him completely. The man on the floor fighting for his life? Derek Shavers, 31 years old, father of a 6-year-old son. Worked as a team lead at Walmart for 5 years. He was just there enjoying the concert. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong person. Derek Shavers underwent emergency surgery. He was shot 4 times. His family rushed to his bedside, and his aunt told reporters, "My nephew is a single parent. He decided to go out and have fun with his friends." That's it. His sister would later describe him as a hard-working man who was very kind to people and didn't meet any strangers. A father, a Walmart team lead, and a man who just wanted a night out with friends. And now all of that hung in the balance as Shavers lay in a hospital bed. Mobile police responded, witnesses gave statements, surveillance footage was collected, and the investigation was just beginning. Arrests wouldn't come for months, which meant McCarroll was still free, still planning, and still directing. Just 3 days later, while Shavers fought for his life and detectives worked to identify suspects, the conspiracy would claim another victim 300 miles away in a Mississippi casino parking lot. September 21st, 2022. 3 days after bank nightlife. The unseasonably warm September weather continues across the Gulf Coast. And while Derek Shavers fights for his life in a Mobile hospital, 2 young men drive north to Mississippi. John McCarroll had directed Darius Rouser and another man, Carmelo Cortez Morris Dirks, to steal a car. They needed an untraceable vehicle for surveillance back in Mobile. They wanted to track Milton Carter's movements. And they ended up at the Scarlet Pearl Casino Resort in D'Iberville, Mississippi. Around 2 in the morning, Rouser and Dirks positioned their already stolen Nissan Altima near a Dodge Charger in the parking lot. Rouser told Dirks, "I'll do the rest," and then Rouser approached the Charger. Inside that Charger, 36-year-old Nicholas Craig. Craig was a Best Buy manager who'd moved to California in 2019. Originally from Mobile, his mother, Sumoris Tucker, would later describe him as tall, handsome, respectable, a good son. He pursued creative endeavors, college for art, amateur photography, and even his own clothing business. September 20th, the day before, had been Nick's 36th birthday. He'd flown to New Orleans with his girlfriend to celebrate. And they were staying at the Scarlet Pearl, and then heading to Mobile so Nick could visit his mother and continue the birthday celebrations. But Nick had been experiencing back pain from recent surgery. And around 2 in the morning, he went to his vehicle, probably to sit in the car and get some relief. His girlfriend, Iman Drummond, was on the phone with him. She was having a normal conversation with Nick. And then something shifted. She heard Nick's voice change and then, "Get the fuck out of the car!" The line went dead. She called back 6 times. No answer. Darius Rouser shot Nicholas Craig through the car window. A single gunshot. Nick Craig died in that parking lot. And here's the bitter irony. They shot him, but didn't even successfully steal the car. Craig's body was found inside his rented Dodge Charger. Another botched operation in a conspiracy built on failures. And later, when Dirks asked why he shot the man, Rouser reportedly said, "It had to be done." They needed a car, any car. Nick Craig happened to be in the wrong vehicle, in the wrong parking lot, at the wrong time. Iman Drummond's 911 call was later played for the jury, the recording of her frantically trying to explain what she'd heard over the phone. After the shooting, Rouser and Dirks drove their stolen Nissan back to Alabama, to Azalea Apartments in Pritchard, and then set it on fire, trying to destroy evidence. Nick Craig came home to visit his mother for his birthday, and he never made it. Wrong person, wrong victim. And Milton Carter? Still alive. 3 weeks later, Derek Shaver's family would stop praying for recovery, and they'd start planning a funeral. 3 weeks after Bank Nightlife, Derek Shavers never recovered. October 8th, 2022, a Saturday. After approximately 3 weeks fighting for his life, Derek Day-Day Shavers died. A candlelight vigil was held on October 13th. Family and friends gathered, and they spelled out "Long Live Day" on the concrete. His sister, Sierra Gray, told reporters, "We're trying to cope with it the best way we can, but it's hard for all of us. His mom, our dad, our sisters." And she described her brother as a hard-working man who was very kind to people and didn't meet any strangers. Derek left behind a 6-year-old son whose whole world revolved around his father. The hard-working man, the kind soul who didn't meet any strangers. The father whose 6-year-old's world revolved around him. All of it ended because Reginald Fluker shot the wrong person. It was the first confirmed death in Mobile, the second body overall. And John McCarroll? He's still free, still directing, still not finished. Thanksgiving weekend was coming, and with it, the next attack. It's November 26th, 2022, Thanksgiving weekend. Downtown Mobile, on Dauphin Street, in the entertainment district, it's unseasonably warm for late November. The kind of warmth that kept people out late on a Saturday night. McCarroll is still free. Police are still investigating the Bank Nightlife shooting. And he's not finished. McCarroll contacted Darius Rouser, provided him with an illegally modified machine gun, and directed him to find Milton Carter and complete the job. Rouser was now 20 years old. He'd already killed Nicholas Craig in Mississippi, though that connection wasn't publicly known. And McCarroll gave Rouser specific instructions: surveillance, weapons, and timing. Thanksgiving weekend, a high school reunion after-party. The paparazzi lounge was packed, and one woman had been there only about 25 minutes. Around 2:16 in the morning, Darius Rouser opened fire with the machine gun. The scene was just devastation. 4 people were shot, and Milton Carter, once again, unharmed somehow. Police found 2 27-year-old victims at the scene, one male and one female. The female suffered life-threatening injuries. She was shot in the neck, and the bullet caused permanent paralysis. 2 more victims arrived at the hospital via personal vehicles with multiple gunshot wounds. Non-life-threatening, but injuries nonetheless. The 27-year-old woman shot in the neck would never walk again. She went from walking into downtown Mobile to spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair. She had just been out with friends. It was Thanksgiving weekend. a high school reunion, and in the wrong place when someone else's war came through. One victim, Michaela Tillman, would eventually speak publicly. "I heard gunshots as I was turning around to run. My body went into total shock and I fell to the ground instantly." 3 separate incidents now, 2 confirmed deaths, 1 permanent paralysis, and multiple wounded. Bank nightlife, 1 dead. Mississippi, 1 dead. Paparazzi lounge, 1 paralyzed, 3 wounded. And the target? Still walking around. Mobile police started seeing a pattern. McCarroll's name kept appearing. The bank nightlife shooting, now paparazzi. Shell casings matched. Witnesses overlapped. Surveillance video showed a man in a hoodie. That was Rouser.
A quick aside here. This one's personal for me as a longtime viewer of the First 48 TV series. Leading the Mobile investigation was Detective Jermaine Rogers, a homicide detective who appeared on the A&E series from 2017 to 2022. And if you've watched the show, you know what that means. These aren't theoretical investigators. They're detectives working real cases in real time with cameras documenting every decision. At a January 2023 bond hearing, Rogers presented the evidence that connected these shootings: surveillance footage, cell phone records, and witness statements. The kind of methodical police work the show is known for. Now, I spent 2 years as a police dispatcher, so I've seen how detectives operate under pressure, and Rogers was building a federal conspiracy case across multiple jurisdictions while victims were still being shot. That's the reality behind the TV show, and why this investigation mattered to me.
Investigators realized they weren't dealing with random violence. They were dealing with a coordinated campaign, and it was escalating. But McCarroll wasn't deterred by catastrophic failures. He wasn't deterred by the fact that every attempt was hitting the wrong person. He kept going. 2 days after Christmas, a Walmart. The shopping trip that would finally crack the whole conspiracy wide open. It's now December 27th, 2022, 2 days after Christmas. The Arctic cold that had gripped Mobile over the holiday weekend was finally breaking. Temperatures recovering from the frigid Christmas that had brought record lows to the Gulf Coast. Walmart Supercenter on East Interstate 65 Service Road in Mobile. Prime shopping hours, 8:35 in the evening. Rouser, Tyshawn J.P. Pierce, and Carmelo Dirks were at the store. Their purpose? Shopping for a GPS tracking device to finally locate Milton Carter and finish the job. In the self-checkout area, an altercation erupted. Rouser and Pierce opened fire with illegally modified machine guns. 2 shoppers were shot, a man and a woman. Both suffered non-life-threatening injuries. Both were traumatized. And customers and employees fled. And the store locked down. When FBI agents eventually executed search warrants on the defendants' phones and social media accounts, they found something extraordinary. The conspiracy wasn't hidden. It was documented. It was bragged about. And it was posted publicly. Instagram voice messages between conspirators discussed the shooting, not in code and not carefully, just openly. Rouser sent voice messages bragging about attempts on Milton Carter's life. FBI agents testified about one Instagram voice message. Rouser, 2 days after paparazzi, saying, "Bro, I just shot 4 folks in the club with 3 bullets. The voice messages had been compressed. They were muffled quality, the kind of audio you get when someone records late at night in a car or a bathroom. They were trying to keep their voice down, but they could still be heard. That tinny echo that Instagram voice messages get. Not professional recordings, just casual confessions preserved forever in a phone's memory and on a server. Facebook messages discussed plans. Rouser messaged about obtaining black spray paint before the Mississippi carjacking. And the day after Craig's death, he messaged a co-defendant asking to trade guns because his was hot. A Google search on Rouser's phone, abandoned at the Walmart, showed he'd searched for a magnetic GPS tracking device. Public post, visible to friends, visible to investigators, and visible to a jury. But the most damning evidence wasn't just the social media. It was the jailhouse phone calls. You see, after his arrest in early 2023, John McCarroll was held in Mobile County Metro Jail. Every phone call is recorded. Every conversation is logged. It's standard procedure. And there's a recording at the beginning of every call. This call is being recorded and monitored. Even from custody, McCarroll continued working the conspiracy, coordinating with co-defendants, discussing the case, attempting to obstruct justice. He directed Hollis to hide the murder weapon from bank nightlife. He tried to get Fluker to sign a false affidavit claiming McCarroll wasn't involved. Recorded, logged, time-stamped, admissible in court. The defendants knew this, the warning plays on every call. But they kept talking anyway. 9 victims, 2 dead, 1 paralyzed, and the evidence to prove it all? The defendants created it themselves. By the end of December 2022, the toll was devastating. 1 person permanently paralyzed, 6 additional people wounded, 9 victims total, and the intended target, Milton Carter, never got a scratch. Arrests came in waves throughout late 2022 and into 2023. Carmelo Dirks arrested December 30th, days after the Walmart shooting. Darius Rouser arrested shortly after, charged with attempted murder, assault connected to paparazzi, and the Mississippi murder. John Fitzgerald McCarroll Jr., he was already locked up on state charges. Federal charges were added after the FBI connected the conspiracy. Lyteria Hollis, McCarroll's girlfriend? Well, she facilitated Cash App payments to shooters and hid the murder weapon from bank nightlife at McCarroll's discretion. Reginald Fluker, the bank nightlife shooter? He eventually cooperated with authorities and pleaded guilty. The charges were severe: murder for hire conspiracy, using firearms in crimes of violence, interstate murder for hire, obstruction of justice. Multiple weapons charges, including illegal possession of machine guns. Under federal sentencing guidelines, several charges carried mandatory life sentences. And there's no parole in the federal system. Life means life. Some defendants made strategic decisions. Reginald Fluker signed a cooperation agreement, agreed to testify against McCarroll and others in exchange for a reduced sentence. Carmelo Dirks also cooperated. On April 18, 2024, he pleaded guilty to transporting a stolen vehicle across state lines. But 3 defendants, John McCarroll, Darius Rouser, and Lyteria Hollis, refused plea deals. They wanted to go to trial. And the prosecution had a simple strategy: let the defendants convict themselves. October 2024, United States District Court, Southern District of Alabama, Mobile Division. The courtroom was packed. Victims' families, media, legal observers. One of the most unusual federal trials Mobile had seen in years. Prosecutors played the Instagram voice messages. The jury heard defendants' own voices discussing the shootings and bragging about attempts and planning future attacks. They showed the Facebook posts, the defendants mocking failed attempts, making jokes about missing the target. They played the jail phone calls. After his arrest, McCarroll on recorded lines from Mobile County Metro Jail, directing Hollis to hide the murder weapon, trying to get Fluker to sign a false affidavit. Witnesses described the chaos at Bank Nightlife, the panic at Paparazzi Lounge, Iman Drummond's frantic 911 call from the Mississippi murder, desperately trying to explain what she had just heard over the phone. Surveillance video from the Scarlet Pearl Casino was shown. Rouser exiting the passenger seat around 1 a.m., approaching the Charger with a gun. Victim impact was powerful. Medical professionals testified about the paralyzed woman's injuries, about Derek Shaver's fatal wounds, about the 6 other shooting victims. Reginald Fluker took the stand. He'd signed a cooperation agreement, and he testified that McCarroll handed him the gun at Bank Nightlife, that McCarroll pointed out the target, and that McCarroll directed the shooting. Under cross-examination, Fluker admitted some inconsistencies. He said he didn't know McCarroll until weeks before the shooting, and the payment was unclear. His plea agreement mentioned $20,000, but actual Cash App transfers totaled only about $89. Defense attorney Josh Briskman pressed, "That would be a quite low amount to kill somebody, right?" But the core testimony stood. The defense argued these were isolated criminal acts, not a coordinated conspiracy. They suggested random acts of violence better suited for state prosecution. But the evidence was just overwhelming. The Instagram messages were in the conspirators' voices. The jail calls were recorded and timestamped. Shell casings from paparazzi matched a gun found at Rouser's friend's apartment. The pattern was kind of undeniable. Prosecutors characterized the case as a street war and a blood feud, and asked jurors to hold defendants accountable for death and violence that created a bloody trail of collateral damage across Alabama and Mississippi. The jury deliberated. October 25th, 2024. The courtroom was packed and silent. John Fitzgerald McCarroll Jr., guilty, all counts. Darius Rouser, guilty, all counts. Lyteria Hollis, guilty on all counts except witness tampering. 3 guilty verdicts, mandatory life sentences ahead. But before they could be imposed, the court wanted to hear from the people who paid the price for this conspiracy.
Do you run or stand and face the void, the pull, the empty space? Every choice feels the same in this
It's now April 2nd, 2025, 5 months after the guilty verdicts. United States District Court, sentencing day. The courtroom was even more packed than during trial. Victims' families filled the gallery, some wearing memorial buttons with photos of Derek Shavers and Nick Craig. Before the judge imposed sentences, there was something the court wanted to hear: victim impact statements. Derek Shavers' family spoke. His mother described her son, the hard-working man who was kind to everyone, the Walmart team lead who took pride in his work, and the man who was just out enjoying music when someone else's vendetta found him. She addressed the defendants directly and told them her grandson would grow up without a father, that Derek's last weeks were terror and pain, and that their family would never be whole again. Nicholas Craig's family spoke next. His mother, Sumoris Tucker, described her son, the Best Buy manager with creative passions, the man who came home to celebrate his birthday. She described how Nick never made it to Mobile. He was shot in a casino parking lot the day after his 36th birthday. The paralyzed woman's family testified. Her testimony described life before November 26th, dancing and walking and independence, and after, wheelchairs, medical equipment, permanent care needs, a future completely changed. The judge noted her remarkable resilience in facing a lifetime of challenges she never chose. When victim statements concluded, U.S. District Judge Terry Moore addressed the defendants. His tone was measured but firm. He noted the conspiracy's scope, the months of planning, the multiple attempts, the 9 victims, the interstate crimes, the use of illegal weapons, and critically, the defendants' own documentation of their crimes. The sentence? McCarroll, age 31. Life in prison without possibility of parole. Rouser, age 21. Life in prison without possibility of parole. Hollis, age 31. Life in prison without possibility of parole. Total restitution ordered $1.2 million for medical expenses, funeral costs, and ongoing care needs. Although, they're probably not going to see a penny of that. Carmelo Dirks received 84 months for his cooperation. Reginald Fluker, the bank nightlife shooter who cooperated extensively, received 30 years. There was no dramatic courtroom reaction, no outburst, just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when something permanent settles in. 3 people, McCarroll, Rouser, and Hollis, would spend the rest of their lives in federal prison. The rest of their lives. In the federal system, life means natural life. No parole, no early release. They will die in custody. Today, John McCarroll is serving life without parole at a federal penitentiary. He's 31 years old, could live another 50 years, all of them in prison. Darius Rouser is 21. He was 19 when he killed Nicholas Craig. 20 when he paralyzed a woman at the Paparazzi Lounge. Life without parole, he'll likely spend the next 60 years in federal custody. And Hollis, 31, life without parole, decades ahead in federal women's prison for facilitating payments and hiding evidence. Was it worth it? The paralyzed woman from the Paparazzi Lounge continues extensive physical therapy. She's learned to navigate her new reality, but it's still a reality she never chose. And Derek Shavers' 6-year-old son is now 9. Growing up without his father, his family said his whole world revolved around his dad. Nick Craig's family continues grieving. His mother described him as tall, handsome, and respectable, a good son who came home to celebrate his birthday. He was supposed to arrive that September 21st. He never made it. Now, appeals are pending in the 11th Circuit, but given the evidence, the defendant's own Instagram messages, Facebook posts, and recorded jail calls, legal experts say reversal is probably unlikely. The case is closed, the sentences are imposed, but the consequences, they continue. So here's what happened. Milton Carter survived unharmed, 0 injuries, a perfect failure rate targeting him, a perfect success rate hitting everyone else. McCarroll serving life, Rouser serving life, Hollis serving life, and they'll spend the next 5 decades or more in federal prison. Seems senseless, doesn't it? Derek Shavers and Nicholas Craig are dead. 1 woman is paralyzed. 6 others carry physical and psychological scars, and it was all based on a false assumption from the very beginning. By the way, if you want full case files, court documents, and behind-the-scenes analysis I used for this episode, if you're subscribed to the email list at truecrimeunheard.com, when you get the notification email for this episode, there will be a secret link in that email where you can download all of this stuff and look at it for yourself. Here's what troubles me most about this case, and about so many cases I've investigated over 30 years. How many crimes start with someone being absolutely certain about something that just isn't true? McCarroll was certain Milton Carter orchestrated Ryan Campbell's death. Police said otherwise. The courts convicted someone else. But McCarroll's certainty overrode evidence, investigation, and justice. Every day, people act on assumptions they never verify. Every day, someone is absolutely certain about something that's just wrong. And every day, those bad assumptions, combined with access to weapons and a willingness to use violence, destroy lives. The target was wrong, the premise was wrong, the certainty was wrong. But the guns were real, the bullets were real, the deaths were real. John McCarroll pointed to Milton Carter in the nightclub and said, "That one, kill him." 15 months later, 2 dead, 1 paralyzed, 6 wounded, 3 people serving life sentences, and the intended target walked away unharmed. Sometimes the worst crimes aren't about evil, they're about certainty. Being so sure you're right that you may never stop to ask, what if I'm wrong? By the time McCarroll asked that question, if he ever did, 9 people had already paid the price. I'm Steve Rhode, and this has been True Crime Cases You Haven't Heard. If you have information about overlooked true crime cases, you can reach me through the website at truecrimeunheard.com. You can find True Crime Cases You Haven't Heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you listen. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And be sure to visit truecrimeunheard.com and sign up for the notification emails so you not only get access to the secret court documents, but also my weekly updates. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and stay subscribed. Bye.